Thank you, everybody, for joining for another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am excited today to have Kunal Kohli on the podcast. Kunal, thank you for joining.
Shane, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time. Do you want to give the listeners just a little background into your career and what you've been up to the last few years?
Sure. So I primarily started my career in the investment banking world. I think like a lot of bankers who get out of it, hated it. A lot of long nights, a lot of hours. And then, kind of moved on, played poker for a little while, paid the bills, which was pretty cool.
Oh, you actually played like professional poker?
Yeah, like professional,
Oh, whoa.
like a year and a half. Not too many people know about it. I guess they'll know now. But yeah, it was fun. And then the wife said, if you want to get married, you're gonna have to get a real job. So then obviously went and got a real job. Actually started working, doing some management consulting. Got a gig with a food brand. It was an Italian food brand. They partnered with a celebrity. His name is Paul Sorvino. I don't know if you remember Goodfellas, where he cut the garlic with the razor.
Oh, yeah.
He's a cool guy. He's also an opera singer, which was pretty fun because he would actually just bust out into an opera song a couple times during meetings. And
Oh, wow.
up close deals. But then while I was working there, I actually, got hooked up with Robert, who ended up being my partner in Bou. He ran a brand in the UK, looking to launch in the US. So I became the general manager in the US for that. So pretty much agreed to do a ton of things that I had no clue how to do it, but I learned, right? That's the way that you kind of move forward in building businesses, is that you just say yes and figure out how to do it. Was working on that. They went another direction. They ended up selling the company, got acquired by Diamond Food Snyder Lance.
Oh, wow.
Here, we were like, what's next? And that's when the idea for Bou came around. I was working very closely with a manufacturer for the products that we were going to bring from the UK. They kind of presented this idea to me, and I'm like looking at it, I'm like, bouillon? Seriously? It's like the least sexiest thing out there, right? Like, how are we going to make bouillon cool? And then when I went out, did some more research, went into stores, it was a product that was everywhere, right? It was in your natural specialty retailers like Whole Foods and Wegmans. It was in your conventional ShopRite, Stop and Shop, even in like your mass, right? Like your Walmart, your Costco's, all that type of stuff. So I was like, you know what? Maybe there is something here, because what we saw was just a lot of like the nasty stuff, right? Like people refer to them as salt cubes, because it's just packed with a ton of salt, bad ingredients. So, with our manufacturer, we figured out a proprietary way to take out all of that, not all the salt, but a lot of the salt,
Oh, wow.
a lot of the, artificial ingredients, and really focus on taste, fresh ingredients, etc. And we worked on it for 9 to 12 months.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we launched, right? It was like a side gig for Robert and myself. We were working full time somewhere else. And literally we launched it. We got in touch with the Whole Foods buyer, I think in the 4th or 5th month that we launched.
Oh, wow.
And within
That's
48 hours.
fast.
Yeah, it was crazy how everything just developed and like snowballed. Like, literally, we have this meeting, get set up with this meeting. In 48 hours, the buyer calls us back and goes, hey, listen, I like what you guys are doing. I looked at my data. I'm going to launch you into 10 out of the 11 regions come September.
Whoa.
So,
Were you even ready for that?
no, right? It's like one of those things where you just nod your head and say, yeah, absolutely. We'll figure it out. And that's what we did.
Wow.
With Whole Foods, it's a pretty big deal. And we're like, okay, this is a real business now. So I moved over full time. And that opens up all the doors. You get distribution with UNFI, and then all of a sudden you become like a real business. So yeah, we did that. I grew the business. Triple kind of first year. We're growing by double, triple digits. We're now in over 9,000 doors nationwide.
Holy smokes.
I don't even know how many SKUs now, 14, 15 SKUs. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's exciting. Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize that it like happened that fast from the research I did. So when you launched, were you guys just like on your, did you have a website? Like
Yeah,
where'd you start?
yeah. So we started out obviously refining the products. The first product range was the bouillon cubes. Then we came out with gravy cubes, which has never been done before. So
Oh, yeah.
gravy is in like nasty goop in like a jar or
Right.
powder. And a lot of artificial ingredients, kind of same thing, right? So same kind of category. We brought the cube angle to it, better for you ingredients, right? So when we first launched, we launched into like the independent retailers in like the New York area. There's tons of them,
Yeah.
so it's
Okay.
smaller distribution. Had a website. We were selling through our Shopify store, getting onto Amazon, etc. But the play was always brick and mortar. It was always, bouillon. It's not a heavily searched item online, right?
Got it. Okay.
It's a cooking ingredient that people are buying, as they go down the aisles within the grocery store, and we always knew that. So the plan was to go after retail. I just didn't think it was going to be Whole Foods,
Right.
and nor did I think it was going to be that quick, because Whole Foods you got to build out region by region.
Right.
Yeah, and then when that happened, open up distribution with UNFR. I was like, all right, now we have a hunting license. Now we can go out there and getting more retailers.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, how did I feel like that product too, it must have been just like a perfect combination for Whole Foods. Like it just seems like such a they always seem like a player that wants to take people in early if it's like a disruptive, better for you type of product. I always love just like going to Whole Foods because I just feel like I always run into brands that you don't see everywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, Whole Foods kind of built their entire business, right, on pioneering new products, new categories, right? Tons of brands that are currently out there in the market. I'm seeing, I didn't even realize how many brands are out there until I joined, Union Crate. And, we're trying to work with a lot of these guys as well. And, Whole Foods has always been at the forefront of finding kind of these better for you, healthier alternatives, right? And again, they're willing to support you in that. So they were very big on like the local kind of suppliers type of thing, et cetera. I mean, listen, their business model has definitely evolved since then. One of the biggest issues I think was that there wasn't really a lot of consistency from one region to the next. So they definitely have improved upon that. But yeah, I mean, like I was thinking that we were going to be going after like Stop and Shop, ShopRite first, and
Okay. Yeah.
then Whole Foods come in. But yeah, it was funny how it worked out the opposite.
Right, right. One of my questions I had for you too, because I didn't know this background of the story was just like how did you go from investment banking to food? You kind of explained already just like the first step. And then how did you like where did this idea come from, I guess? Like where was like the ideation? Do you remember like having the conversation with your partner where you were like, let's do this, let's start it on the side?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he obviously comes from the food and beverage world. He's been successful. I've been in there. I've, consulted with a lot of like startup brands as well. I help them, with their sales and marketing strategy, getting into a bunch of retailers and everything as well. So it was always fun, right? It was like a passion. I love seeing like how you actually like think of something in your head and like, I'm going to now turn this into a product. You turn it into a product, which is, already a win. And then now you're actually seeing it in store, which is a
Yeah.
bigger win, right? And it's
Right.
entrepreneurs in this space can relate to that. Like, I don't even know where I was randomly, just like on a trip, just going in to get like a drink, right? To like one of these stores. And it's like a small mom and pop store. And I'm like, oh shit, there's Boo. Like,
That's so cool. Yeah.
cool to see that happen. But yeah, I mean, listen, one thing that I would say is that, our bouillon was definitely, I'm not going to say a game changer. It was just, we were coming into a very tired category. It was very sleepy. There was
Right.
no innovation at all, still dominated by all the big brands. So I think, Whole Foods, especially, they're not, they're not a retailer that's just going to promote all these enterprise types of companies, right? They want to see innovation and, different, smaller brands, solving a need. And when we launched, and we launched within Whole Foods, the feedback was great. Like people are like, wow, I never thought that bouillon could taste this good, or I thought that it couldn't have, it needed to have this much salt, because it has to retain its shape, and it needs to have a long shelf life. So that was, a couple of challenges that we had to overcome. But yeah, I mean, going from if you would have told me when I graduated college that I was going to launch a bouillon business, I would have told you're smoking something. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's fun, right? The journey that I've been on, you learn a lot. I'm a guy who preaches, learn from your mistakes. Don't be shy to make any mistakes. Mistakes are what, build your experience. I've connected with a ton of founders, entrepreneurs, et cetera, kind of in the past 3-4 months. And I'm like, listen, you're going to learn a lot. What I can show you are the mistakes that I made and the experiences that I learned from them.
Right. Sure. Yeah. What are, just to build on that, what are some like mistakes you guys made at Boo early on that like you learned from, and maybe help pivot or change the way you got where you headed?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is build a company to last, not to sell, right?
Mm,
That's definitely, I think that, when people kind of have had success before, or they've been through an acquisition, they automatically think that they have the winning formula, right? There is no such thing. Every business, every brand, every product is different. How you approach it is going to be different. You can't just depend on knowing what's going to happen, because it doesn't work that way, right? So, but another thing is that if you try to grow too quick, you're gonna make costly mistakes, right? You're going to invest in things that, if you didn't plan it out properly, it's going to cost you. And it did
got
for us,
it.
right? We had a product launch that we put a lot of money into, and we thought was going to end up being our hero range. It wasn't. We actually, we didn't discontinue, although we should have, but we ended up, repackaging, reformulating, and, going out with another strategy. So
Mm,
my first thing is 100% build your company to last, not to sell. Number two is, don't rush to go and raise a ton of money, right?
okay.
Money is obviously needed to build a brand, but you need to prove out concept first, right? You need to get that feedback, not just from your buyer or your distributor or your broker. You need consumer feedback, because those are the people that are going to be 100% honest with you, right? They're the ones that are buying your brand, and not just buying your brand. There has to be some type of emotional attachment that they have to it, that
Right.
continue to use it. So, shoelace your budget, right? Like shoestring your budget, not shoelace, shoestring your budget. Like, try to go out there and spend only $10 to bring in $50, right? Don't try to go and spend $100 to bring in $50.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs do, especially the ones that have raised a ton of money. They're just concentrating on the top line, when you really
Right.
focus on your bottom line from day one.
Got it. So be profit focused from the start and not just top line.
100%.
Yeah.
Margin focus too. Always look for ways to improve your margins.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people who are just worried about getting into the next door lose sight of that. I came in at RX like after the acquisition, right after as the acquisition was going on. But it's interesting talking to founders, and in my experience at RX, just like everyone has done it slightly different, but it does seem with what you said that seems to be like a common theme is, be bottom line focused, be margin focused, and that stuff goes a long way. And even if you're someone deep down who thinks they're going to sell, is the reason you're saying build a business that will last, is that because even if you do sell, that's how you build a company that's like ready to sell or like worth selling kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, at RX Bar, right? Like Peter and, when they first started, they were focused on their bottom line, right?
Yeah.
They weren't spending money that they didn't have. Another person, Daniel Levitsky, right? I look up to him very much. I bumped into him on a plane and, uh, gathered up the courage to go up to him. And now I, exchange emails with him, and he's incredibly nice, offers a lot of great advice. And again, he said same thing in his book, is that don't spend money that you don't have, right?
Right.
You invest your money as a way to grow your business efficiently. My team always used to laugh at me because I would use the two E's, efficient and effective, right?
Yeah.
You're not either one of those, your business will fail sooner or later, right? If you don't implement the right systems, the right processes, if you don't have the right people to back you up, you're just going to keep on spinning your wheels until you have to turn off the lights, right? And don't get me wrong, there were times that almost happened to us at Bou, right? We had to make some serious changes, had to have some, serious discussions about what was going to happen with the future of the company if we went down this path or not. So when people actually pay attention to their bottom line and are building it to the point where it can pay for itself, plus it
Yeah.
can pay for your life, your salary, and all that, then the acquisitions, the mergers, the acquisitions, those will come, right? And case in point is our X Bar,
Yeah.
Con Bar, etc.
Sure. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Do you have any advice for people? Like one thing that's been interesting having a few folks on here that have raised money early on is I've always asked them kind of to your point, like why? Like why did you decide to raise money so early? And do you have any advice for people who, let's just say, you want to start a CPG brand or whatever the business is? Should you almost have like, and this is probably impossible to like predict or know the right amount, but like, how do you know you have enough money maybe set aside to be able to fund yourself? Because I think that's the challenge that I've heard some people go through is like they're just burning faster than they can
Yeah.
then they can like, support their own business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, listen, I don't know if there is an answer when
Yeah.
you're starting out your business, right? Like I would say whatever you are thinking in your head, triple that.
Okay.
Because there are so many factors and variables that go into building a business, right? First and foremost, it's all dependent on your sales or market strategy, right? Like,
Right.
are you going to be selling brick and mortar, or are you going to be focusing more on D2C, right? COVID has obviously, in a way, helped brands get off the ground because the focus has been shifted more to e-commerce,
Yeah.
right? I think I was reading somewhere that the growth that e-commerce has experienced this year was projected to take 8 to 10 years to happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Businesses can be more profitable by going down the e-commerce route because you're cutting out that middleman and the distributor, right?
Right.
And the retailer margin. Obviously, you're going to have margins that you need to give to Amazon or Shopify. Is going to be less, so you actually make more money, right? But again, it's a bit more difficult to grow or scale the brand as much as you would in brick and mortar. And then obviously you need to rely on your forecasts. And this is something that I, talk about every day, right? Because,
Okay.
at Union Crate, we work with a lot of established brands who, still are forecasting very manually, right? They're primarily only taking in their historical information. While they may have access to data, they don't necessarily know how to use it or build it into their forecast, right? So, we provide the AI component to it, like, our partnerships with data providers, et cetera. Like, we're providing higher accurate forecasts, but when you're first starting out, you're not going to go and work with an AI, demand planning company.
Sure. Yeah.
You're going to rely on your, the knowledge of the category, any data that you can get, right? And then you're just going to kind of throw in numbers and try to build it that way, and then try to understand what your cash flow is going to look like and how much money you're going to need. Forecasts at that early stage are never going to be right.
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't take into consideration all the things that could go wrong and will go wrong. So I would say that if you think it's going to take 50,000 to get this up and running, I would budget 150,000 for that.
Got it. No, that totally makes sense. You hit You hit a thing for me because I did that's what I started at RX was forecasting like our e-commerce business.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I had done forecasting at my other two finance roles, but at much larger, I was at Walmart.com, so like different type of forecasting. What was amazing to me at RX was what you just said, like the unpredictability of what you don't know is coming is crazy. And
Yep.
it's so hard to be. I think for any business, it's amazing to think of all the different things that you don't know are coming, and so trying to plan for that and have the cash to not to not run out too early. Do you think do you think some of that though for companies who go and raise money and maybe prematurely, maybe not? Do you think a lot of the brands that you've met or worked with, is there usually like another way, whether it's like cutting costs, being more efficient, as you said, and that just seems like an easier route to go raise some money, and when they're actually not fixing maybe like the root problem or issue?
100%. I actually, posted something on LinkedIn last week where, I was always looking for what was going to go wrong, right? Instead of focusing on all the great things and all that stuff, I think, as a leader, you need to kind of foresee the issues that you may run into. So I was always looking for solutions that would help um, improve, just how we operated, right? Because when you're running a business, the sales and marketing expenses are always going to be there. I'm sure that a lot of companies can relate that they tend to go over budget because they think that if they spend more on marketing, it's going to lead more to sales, right? But
Right.
that does work in some cases, but then at the same time, in order to hit those sales, you're putting a strain on your supply chain and your operations, your expenses are going up, which then obviously affects your bottom line, right? So I would always go and be like, what can we do to fix the bottom line, right? So what can we do to implement better systems, more efficiencies, have people be more focused on the things that they actually need to accomplish instead of wearing, it's fine in a startup, everyone's going to wear multiple hats, but, let's not be the jack of all trades. Let's be the master of, one, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, that's where I was always looking for different types of tools that could help, improve, even time, right? Like if I could implement a system that, was not so much money, but was going to free up time from, certain team members to go and focus on the things that they needed to focus on, like that's an opportunity cost, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to go ahead and take advantage of that. Same thing kind of on the sales side of things. If I knew that I could go and work with some type of solution that helped me understand how my product was performing at store level, or if I could see what was happening at the store level, it may have been a big upfront cost at that time, but again, the opportunity cost over time would work out better for me. And again, it goes back to your margins, right? You really have to have a good grasp on what your gross and your net margins are. If you can improve those functions or those areas like we did, like our logistics costs were getting out of hand a couple of years ago, and it was we were not working with the best 3PL,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
Service levels weren't great, constantly orders were being messed up, all that type of stuff. So the first thing that we did was actually I implemented Union Crate's ERP, right?
Oh,
We were
cool.
the first small company to implement that ERP solution. It streamlined all of my order process, inventory management, and purchase orders. And then when I was able to do that, I then had the ability to have a more intellectual conversation with my 3PL. And I was like, what's going on here, guys? Now, there shouldn't be any issue or reason for you to be messing up my orders. There's a problem on your side. So, you know what? I'm going to take away my brick and mortar business away from you, and I'm going to move it to another 3PL. And I
Oh,
did that in a matter of 3 to 4 months. And I actually saw my logistics costs improve by 18%. It's a
oh
pretty
wow.
big deal, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So if you can figure out things like that, like, take a step back, understand, really dissect the problem, where it's starting, what solution you can implement, and then take action from there. Don't just go, all in. Oh, we got to stop working with this guy, or oh no, this is not the right thing for us, or we got to figure out how to lower our costs on our products. It doesn't work like that, right? Like you got to attack it from a couple of different angles and find that solution that is going to be effective for you.
Got it. Okay. Do you have any advice, for anyone listening? Because that right there, it's actually a tip I honestly haven't really heard, was like thinking about implementing systems that save people time to focus on the bigger things. How did you, back in those earlier days, how did you decide, what was worth the investment versus like, because I think one thing that a lot of founders talk about is just being scrappy. So I could see people being like, well, instead of spending money on the system, we just need to be scrappier, or you know what I mean? How do you balance those two things?
Right. Well, I would always go and look at, where were we having the biggest problem, or where did we have the biggest gap, right? And then took those few areas, whatever they are, and be like, where are we spending or losing out on the most dollars, right? And once you get a better understanding of what that is, then you go and start looking for what potential solutions are out there. And it's funny, like there are solutions for a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Right.
Things that, I didn't even know about while I was at Boo and I came to Union Crate. I'm like, holy cow, that exists. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
and it does, right? So once you factor in what that problem is, how big of a problem that is, right? And what solution you can implement that is going to help you, whether it's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, because time is money.
Right.
That's just a fact, right? And if it provides you with those resources that could help you grow your business more, that's what I would go after, right? And not to keep relating this back to Union Crate, it's just because that's the transition, right? I went from
Yeah.
building,
Yeah. No, that was my next question. So that's perfect.
went from building my brand to experiencing all the pain points to then sharing office space with these guys at Union Crate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really understanding what they do and how they actually, because the CEO founder of Union Crate Shastri, he used to run his own brand too. He was like the first guy to bring matcha to the US.
Oh, wow.
And he realized the problem. He had a problem with being able to manage his inventory, being able to manage his demand. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to go and build a system out there, because he wasn't happy with the solutions that were being offered. A lot of them were just automating the process. He didn't
Okay.
need automation. He needed someone to tell him this is what he's going to need to have, 3 to 4 months down the road. So he built it, right? And, that was one of the biggest issues that we kept on having, is because our forecasts were changing constantly.
Yeah.
You can't have a forecast that's changing constantly, because it's very difficult then to manage budgets,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's,
I've lived this life. Yeah.
I mean, you know all about it, right? So, like, your forecast is driving your budget, it's driving your cash flow, it's obviously driving everything to do within your corporate strategy. So, if your forecast is constantly changing, it's very difficult to change the other things at the drop of a dime, like, entering
Right.
in a number into this Excel spreadsheet. So, we needed a better solution. We needed a better system. We needed something that was more reliable. And listen, I'll be the first one to admit I was building the forecast, but I mean, I tried to do my best. The only way you
Yeah.
can really do your best is understanding what's happening at not only your distributor level, the retailer level, but also the consumer level, right? Like, and that's a lot of information, especially for one guy like me to handle. Uh,
Yeah.
like, companies now have teams built around that, right?
Right.
To tell you the truth, I don't even think the teams can, teams can't beat machines, right? Like, machines are running like all of these different algorithms and all that type of stuff. So when they told me about that, we were sharing office space, and I was hearing about all the great things they were doing with all of these bigger brands and all that type of stuff. I mean, I was like,
Wow.
why not? And it wasn't expensive, but again, it's an opportunity cost, right? So,
Right.
it was something we were willing to invest in, because it gave us more resources, more time, more money to focus on other things.
Gotcha. No, I mean, that's actually a great story, kind of a light bulb in my head, because it's been funny. Things have changed a lot, but back when first year or so at RX, so like when we were really 2018, our forecast team went from, it really was one person, and then it turned into 9 of us.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, all of us forecasting different channels that would then get consolidated into like one forecast. And I mean, I think you could probably apply this to anything, but the reason that kind of resonated with me was like, we always thought the way to be more accurate is to have more people that are more focused. When in reality, and probably we were all so close to it, and we had envisioned growing the team that the last thing any of us would have thought of is like, I wonder if we can just get a software to do what we're doing. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You could have like almost replaced your job to some degree if you would have thought about that way. But it's
yeah,
interesting to hear that because there's probably lots of parts of businesses as you scale that could be the answer versus just like getting more people
yeah.
and increasing your overhead.
No, absolutely. We'll talk about that for our expert. But listen, we're not here to replace people, right?
Sure.
Like companies want to operate lean, right? And
Yeah.
just like you said, a lot of companies don't have the ability to hire, 8, 9, 10 people just to do, kind of one function, right?
Right.
It's very difficult. Even a lot of these, bigger brands, RX Bar, other enterprise companies as well, you know, you still need that human intelligence, right? So when you tie in that human intelligence plus that AI, then a lot of the great things happen, right?
Got
Because
it.
there's I still feel there is a need for gut
Yeah.
involved in forecasting, right? Like,
100%.
if you're seeing kind of what's happening with this pandemic, right? Like, our models can tell you that if a state is going to close down, you're going to expect to see sales increase this much. If a state is going to reopen, then your sales may dip down because now people are going to go outside more and all that type of stuff. And we did that for some of our clients,
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah.
But there is still you need that human intelligence. You still need to understand that, okay, if I'm going to run this promotion over here, right, and either I did this before in this retailer or my competitor did it, I know that I'm going to sell 3x what I am right now, right? So that's a great thing about us, is that, hey, we know that there is still some type of human intuition involved here, so we give you guys the ability to actually update the forecast or augment.
Overwrite it. Yeah. Okay.
Right, right. Now, again, it's going to go, there'll be one person who does it, let's call it maybe like, the specific channel manager for that. And then there'll be an approval process where, the two people come together and talk about why you made that change. And if it makes sense, all right, go for it. Let's do it. So again, it's AI coupled with HI, the human
Oh, I
intelligence.
love it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, so this was kind of going into my next question was, so I mean, we've talked about Boo, and then I didn't. This is an interesting story of like how you end up having shared working spaces and you got to meet the people at Union Crate. How did you like? What made you then actually join? I mean, it's one thing to like use their software and be like, oh, we'll use it for our brand. How did you then decide to go from running your own brand to then going over to Union Crate to actually work for a career?
Yeah, it's funny kind of how it all happened. Listen, when you start a company, it becomes your everything, right? It's like your life. It's like
Yeah.
your baby. That's what it is. Like I have two kids. I would tell people that I have three. I have my two girls and Boo.
Yeah.
Uh, and you get so engrossed into everything, right? And every entrepreneur can relate. It just feels like you're responsible for every single thing that's going on, and in some cases you are. Then fortunately, you raise money, you hire people, but you still want to be involved. You still want to be able to have an understanding of what's going on in each facet of the business, right? And it took me a while to kind of get used to that as we grew out our team. That, okay, now I can take a step back from all of that stuff. I think COVID obviously helped our business. Never want to make light of a terrible situation. It did help our business, but it also kind of put a bit of a strain on, like, what's going to happen in the future, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
how are we going to move forward? Because my partner was very more focused on the fundraising side. I was, handling the operations of the business. He didn't really do much on that side. So, with his fundraising, he got a little nervous because, people just stopped investing.
Right.
So, we obviously had to cut expenses and everything, which was already a part of our plan anyways. Coming into 2020, a big goal or KPI of mine was that, I needed to improve our EBITDA, and I did by almost 70%.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, when that happened, it was great. But then, there were some issues between my partner and myself, kind of the direction of the company, all that. But listen, we both said, listen, we are we want to take care of our baby. We want to make sure that our baby is moving forward. We both, had blood, sweat, and tears into the business. So, he actually stepped down as the CEO back in, October of last year. I came on as, took on the president role when he stepped down. And then we both decided, hey, listen, it's probably best to bring in someone else, right? To kind
Got
of,
it.
run the day to day and, so we can remove that emotional attachment that we tie to our leadership position over there. So listen, I'm very close with the new CEO. We still bounce ideas and everything off of each other. And I was like, what's next for me? Like, what do I want to do? And I kind of reached out to like my network, got a few offers, COO, CEO, CPG space and all that stuff. And then I was like, laying there one night, I'm like, do I really want to go and run a brand again? Like, do I really want to have these sleepless nights? Because it's just in my nature, Shane, that
Yeah.
I make everything mine, right? When I say mine, like I care for it like my kid. So,
No, I can tell. Yeah, definitely.
I will put my time into it. There's no such thing as a 9 to 5 to me or weekends, whatever it is. I mean, the last time, I heard of a vacation was when I looked it up in a dictionary. Um, but, it's just one of those things where like, do I want to do this? And obviously COVID changed a lot of things, people working from home. So I was like, do I want to at least be able to like, hang out with my kids and, do that, I take things personally. So if there's a bad day, I'm going to have a bad day at home and I don't want to do that because I have like
Right.
little girls and they want to play with their dad. So, that's when I kind of started talking to Shastri and Chris, CEO, COO of Union Crate. And, I told him that I was leaving. Boo. Chris was like, well, what's next? I'm like, dude, I don't know what's next, but I want to take some time off. I want to be able to play golf on a midday weekday. I haven't
Love
done
it.
that in like 12 years. So I was doing that, but he's like, listen, come on board. We got a great biz dev role for you over here. Obviously looking for partnerships, someone that has experience running a brand. And I just loved everything that they were doing, right? The
Yeah.
solution, it's not just the tech itself, and the value that we provide. It's the people, right? Like if you feel like you can fit in with a group of people who have like that same goal, that same vision, that same work ethic, you're gonna do a good job, just or you're gonna have fun while working with them. And that's what I really liked, right? Because I saw it firsthand. I was, we were sharing office space, and I saw, a bunch of these guys. They would come in early morning, they wouldn't leave till night, but they were having fun doing
Yeah.
it. It wasn't, they were just like fully strained, stressed out, whatever. And that's kind of why I wanted to join here. And when Chris approached me, I, gave it a lot of thought because I felt I lost my fun in Boo. And when you do that and it's tough to kind of wake up and go to work, you're not doing yourself any justice, and you're not going to do your team or your company any justice either, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're not happy in what you're doing, everyone else will feel it and see it, and it could just bring things down. That's the last thing I want. Like I care more for my team than myself, right?
Got
I
it.
want
Yeah.
to be happy, successful. That's why we always give equity and all that stuff to team members. So it was that. And then after that, kind of 2 weeks playing golf, having the worst golf season that I've had in my entire life, I was like, all right, I'm ready for work. And that's how I came to Unicode.
So it was just 2 weeks. 2 weeks is all you gave yourself.
No, I would say it was like a month, around a
Okay.
month or
Okay.
so. There's like contract negotiations and all that type
Sure.
of stuff. But I think I kind of made up my mind after a couple weeks.
Okay.
And yeah, here I am, and loving every minute of it.
No, that's awesome. I think that's a really important point. It was funny. I tell the story a lot. When I got out of college and I worked at two Fortune 100 companies, so like major corporations. Um, Never felt that like exciting, love what I'm doing thing ever. I mean, that just wasn't what it was. But I remember the final interview I had was in person at RX with Peter,
Nice.
and it was just like I remember walking in. It was 50 people in a one floor office space, and like you could like feel the culture. Like there was something just about it. You could just feel it. And I talk about it all the time because I just remember those days when we were in the small office and it felt like a startup. I mean, people were there early, they stayed late, and we were having fun. Like it was just so much fun. So I definitely can resonate with that. What do you tell people who maybe have never experienced that? Like, how do you go find that if you're someone who's never had that feeling before with work?
That's tough. I mean, listen, like, you know, your work is, to me, work is not a job, right? You actually end up spending, when we were in offices, right? You're probably spending more time with your colleagues than you are with your family at home, right? Because
Right.
you're there for 8, 9, 10 hours, whatever it is, commute back, and then you only have a couple hours, eat dinner, go to sleep, right? And then you kind of repeat it again. If you're not having fun in what you're doing or what you're spending most of your time on, you're just kind of withering away. I feel like you're just
Yeah.
like becoming like a cog, and you're in this system that it's just not going to lead to happiness, right? And listen, people view happiness in different ways, right? Whether it's being secure financially, whether it's actually having fun in what they're doing, building certain things, whatever it is, right? So if you're not having fun in either one of those ways, you're not really experiencing life, and you're kind of putting yourself into this position that you're just not going to be satisfied with whatever you do or whatever you accomplish, right? And that kind of felt like what was happening to me a little bit towards the end of my career time at Boo, was that I just kind of felt like I was this cog that just like was waking up, running through the motions, and then kind of just going and hanging out with the family, and I'm still not even being as loving and fun as I normally was before.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I noticed that, right? And she told me, she brought it up to me. She's like, listen, yes, it's your business, it's your baby, you co-founded it, you built it with your own hands, and you got into the weeds with the team and all that stuff. But if it's not what it used to be, and you're not feeling that same kind of feeling like you used to, because you obviously noticed a huge difference, then it's maybe time to move on. And that's what I would recommend to people right now. If you feel like you're just stuck, right,
Yeah.
and you feel like you're not really getting anywhere, you're just spinning your wheels on a stationary bike, right? um, then it's time to move on. And if you are worried about the finance piece of it, are you going to be able to live? You'll make it work, right?
Sure.
Humans are great that way. They can adapt. They can adapt to all these different types of changes. I had to, right? Like, there was more security in investment banking, as I'm sure that,
Sure. Oh yeah.
right?
Right.
Uh, and then I mean, I lived it by not knowing what my next day was going to look like after I was playing some poker and all that. But then, if you continue chasing that dream, you continue have fun doing what you're doing, it'll all work out, man. I
Right.
feel like that's how it is. Like, I'm a big believer in karma. And if you do good things and you help people, good karma will always follow you. So
Got it. No, I love it. That's great advice. I think the crazy thing this year, I talk with a lot of my friends and colleagues that I've talked to. I think a lot of people probably, to some degree, this year it's depending on the kind of business you work in. Some people feel bored, and a lot of people are worried about trying to leave during COVID with so much uncertainty. But it's interesting because there's companies like you guys at Union Crate, and there's lots of different industries right now that are thriving too. You know what I mean? So it's not all doom and gloom.
yeah, no, absolutely. And again, always have a stocked bar as well. So to take
Right.
care of.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Kunal, the last few questions I love to ask everyone I have on here are kind of the same, but I think they're really important for the listeners.
Sure.
The first one, you obviously are like a high performing person. You've done lots of really interesting things. If anyone goes to your LinkedIn, I mean, I was just impressed. I'm like, he's done so many different things, and it all just seems impressive. What do
It's all
you?
for show. It's all for show.
It's all for show. What do you use for like goal setting and just I always say like goal setting and then like even daily task management. Do you use like apps because you're a tech company now? Are you a pen and paper guy? Like what kind of stuff do you use to organize your life?
So I use my iPad.
Okay.
I don't think I know how to even write my name anymore, because the last time I probably picked up a pen, like I do it for my signatures, and my wife like laughs at my signatures. She has no
You're
idea
like,
what.
what do I do with this pen?
Yeah, it's just like scribble, whatever it is. So what I always have like a to-do list, right, that I kind of put together. at night while I'm in bed, of what I need to do the next day, who I need to reach out to, follow ups, whatever it may be. So I'm a big user of the Notes app.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay. Yep.
ever since I joined Union Crate, Slack seems to be the formal communication channel. I even sometimes write, emails to myself from, one email address to
Ah,
another,
yeah, I've done
right?
that. I do that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's something like pops up in your head, and whatever
It's
it
like,
is. Yeah, so I'm a very big Notes app user. My calendar runs my life, right?
okay. Yeah.
It's funny. Like I don't even know sometimes like how I was just talking to someone else where like it's very easy for me to miss meetings or be very late because either the notification wasn't turned on or whatever, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like 10 minutes late to like the most important meeting now. Like even with this, I'm like, you know what, I gotta sign on earlier so I don't screw up.
I
And
did notice that. I was like, oh shit, he's on. I get an email when people come on the Zoom, and I was like, oh
yeah,
wow, he's on early. This is awesome.
absolutely. Like, I just always make sure that I have my phone in hand, and I'm not saying to constantly look at it, just because if something does pop in my head, I'm quickly on my Notes app and making sure that I jot it down. So
Got it.
I gather my thoughts and all that stuff that way.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. I've heard a few people recently have been bringing up the Notes app on iPads. I don't have an iPad, but is there a reason you like the iPad over the phone? Like, just is it just bigger and
I have
consumer?
I have that the keyboard to the iPad as well, so I think
Ah,
it's a bit
got it.
easier to actually work on it. Since COVID hit, a lot of my friends have been also we do these little poker tournaments.
Oh, nice.
So,
You really are into the poker thing. This is cool.
well, online, I wouldn't play online. I'll only play online against my friends because
Okay.
I'm willing to lose like the 20, $30 over there, but I would never do it again online. So, I'll have, my poker app open and you can split screen now. So I'll have
Oh
like
yeah.
the notes as well. So yeah, it's good when the kids are asleep, we're watching a show that I'm most likely not interested in because my wife is picking the shows. So I'm playing a little poker and, writing my notes down.
Love it. Love it. No, that's fantastic. I know I'm a person this year for some reason I got really into like writing things on paper again.
Oh, really?
But the only thing is I always then need it when I don't have it around me. Like I'll be out at the store or something and be like, shit, I gotta remember this. And so I end up being in my notes app anyway. So I do like that. It's like it's always with you.
Yeah, I tried, and then I think there was just like one point where I was like, I couldn't read my own handwriting. I'm like, this is not working.
There's got to be a better solution. I feel like
Exactly.
at a tech company too, you probably almost. I feel like it's maybe. I wonder if notebooks even exist at most tech companies anymore.
Probably not. Yeah, the only way that it existed probably if it was like on my desk or something, but that's
Right. Yeah,
about.
that's hilarious. Um, what is your? And again, this is talking about paper again. But do you have like a favorite book, or I even say like source of knowledge, whether that's like a podcast, a TED Talk, something that you would tell people would be a great thing to go watch or learn or read?
Yeah. Start with Why is one of my favorite books of all time. It's probably cliche, but I can't tell you how much it really helped us at Boo. I will say that when we first launched the business, we were in Bouillon Gravy Cubes. We knew it wasn't going to be a fast growing company, right? Or when I say, or the products weren't going to be turning over so quickly. It's not
Okay.
like, when you do a demo, RX bar, this, like people can go and grab like 20 bars,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
People aren't going to go and grab 20 jars of bouillon. It will
Well,
last them.
that's interesting, right? Because it's true. Like, I mean, like for me, when I was like people, a lot of people back when we were commuting, or when you go to the gym, that was like someone would have an RX bar every morning.
Right. I do.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the blueberry. So,
Okay. Yeah. There you go. One of the best.
yeah, exactly. So, we knew that, it wasn't going to be a fast growing product. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So
I'm
we
sorry.
were,
I know I cut you off. You were
yeah,
saying fast moving product, like that. It's once in a while you pick one up at the store. You
right.
were saying to start with why.
Yeah, to start with why, right? Exactly. So, we knew that we needed to launch with another product to get us to the, kind of the targets and everything that we wanted to hit. But I think we lost our way because we didn't really understand who we were and what we were about. Because, you know, what you're actually providing to your consumer, your actual why, it's what's going to really drive your entire business, right?
Right.
And that's what's going to drive your sales strategy, your marketing strategy, everything you're doing on the back end, ops, supply chain, whatever. And when we tried to launch this new product, it didn't fit into who we were. It wasn't in our DNA. It kind of, we were trying to like fit like a square into like a circle, like a round peg. It
Yeah.
didn't click. And the problem then happened is that we just lost our way. We didn't know what we were about. And if you would have asked me when we first started the business what our mission, what our vision, what our values were, I couldn't tell you,
Oh,
right?
really? You're
So
just probably
yeah,
worried about selling a product, right?
yeah, right. Like, we wanted to bring that product, actually bring it to market, sell it, hit these targets, raise money, all that type of stuff. But we then really had to like sit down and be like, who are we? What are we about? Like, why are we doing what we are doing? We actually brought in an agency. It was a great agency who literally helped us dissect our business and make us really understand what we were about
Oh,
and
wow.
why we were doing what we were doing. So, Simon Sinek's book is just so impressive and so necessary that any entrepreneur, any founder, whoever, whatever business that you're going to launch, understand your why, right? So that, like, it's very cliche to say that book, but it's just so important because you're building your entire company off of why you do, or why your product is here, and why it should be relevant to a consumer.
Right. Got it. Okay. That one, I just got someone just the other day told me I need to get that book. So you're the second person this week. I need to just go
Oh,
buy it.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a great read. Tons of great information in there. And then, I read a lot of like business books. I read just for fun as well. So I'm reading like the whole Churchill kind of
Oh, cool.
and everything. They're like,
Yeah.
27,000 pages each novel. So I'm
Take
on
you a
the,
little while.
yeah, it takes a little while for sure. I'm on the second one, but obviously a great guy, a great man, very wise. So yeah, that's
Got it.
those are my books.
Love it. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Those are great. Um, you've hit on a couple things in here, but I would love to just, if you had to boil it down to one thing, what advice do you have for anyone who wants to start their own company? Just like if you had one thing to tell someone, in an elevator about starting a business, what would you say?
Uh, Make sure that you are not only mentally prepared but also physically prepared. It is
Oh,
exhausting. The time and effort that you put into it, it mentally drains you, it physically drains you, right? Like I said before, build your company to last, not to sell. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are your best friend. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you become better. I feel like, there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there, a lot of ones that I was very close to that, frowned upon mistakes, that they should not have happened, that they shouldn't be happening. Why are they happening? And I was like, this is a good thing. If mistakes
yeah.
don't happen, you're not taking risk. You're not really an entrepreneur or a founder if you're not making mistakes. You're not really building a business if you're not making a mistake, because you're learning from them. You're doing something that you may not know what you're doing, or you don't have all the information on. And even if you did have all the information on it, there's still something or the other that's going to go wrong, because you can't predict the future. So learn from your mistakes, embrace them, right? I think that's the absolute kind of best thing that I did, that kind of helped me grow, helped me gain my experience. And then that's what I can share with other people. I don't tell them what to do. I tell them what I did and what I did wrong. And then they can go and decide from there how they want to handle
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I love that. That is fantastic advice.
it. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's great. And really the last thing is just how can people follow you, Boo, Union Crate, or if there's some good places for people to check all this stuff out?
Yeah, well, I don't know if following me on Instagram is going to be fun. I literally post once every 2 months, and it's primarily pictures of my kids. They are cute kids though, so if you want to go and see them, I have my handle. It's crazy Kunali without the A. And long story with that, my uncle always
Love
used to
it.
yeah, it stuck. Union Crate at Union Crate, right? We're very active on Instagram. It's pretty cool on Instagram what we do. We provide data or information for specific categories that may be trending,
Oh,
week, that month, check it out. It's
yeah, I'll
pretty
definitely check
cool.
it out.
That way, even on Twitter, our founder has become very active on there. So he's been getting a lot of good, engagement. And then Boo is at booforyou.com. We post a lot of great recipes, just images of food. It's the food porn stuff
Yeah.
that actually share, and you get a lot of good ideas for certain recipes following that.
Okay, got it. That's awesome. Yeah, I was on Amazon earlier today looking to see if Boo was on there. It was one of the first ones I've seen that's like delivered by Whole Foods. I
Yeah, so
hadn't seen that very often.
yeah, Amazon Fresh, I believe, right? So
Yeah.
it's a partnership with Whole Foods. I believe we need to be in Whole Foods in order to do that. Yeah, that took a while. That was a long time in the works, and it's good to see that we finally got that done. But yeah, we're pretty national. Like Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, Stop and Shop. What our CEO is doing is trying to get more of that e-commerce presence.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
Never easy, but she's doing a good job of that.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. Kunal, thank you so much. This is a blast. I want
Thank
to
you.
be conscious of your time, and I appreciate you so much for coming on the show. Though this was awesome.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Kunal, thank you so much again, and I'll put all these links in the show notes. And hope you have a great weekend.
Cool. Thanks. You too,
Awesome.
man.
Awesome. See ya.